How does a single, harmless workplace celebration spiral into the moment I'm handed divorce papers in front of my colleagues, while my husband stands calm, collected, and already gone? The champagne bubbles tickled my throat as I raised my glass higher, basking in the applause echoing through our startup's open-plan office. The product launch had exceeded every projection, and I, Legia Vance, was the architect of this triumph. At 32, I'd climbed higher than anyone expected, especially Owen. "To our brilliant product manager!" Damien Keller's voice boomed across the room. My boss, all 6 feet of charismatic authority, stepped closer with that smile that made investors write checks. "Legia, you've outdone yourself." The crowd cheered louder. I felt electric, powerful, validated in ways Owen's quiet support never provided. This was recognition. This was respect. "Speech, speech," someone called out. I stepped forward, my heels clicking confidently on the polished concrete floor. "Thank you all. This launch proves what happens when you refuse to settle for mediocrity." More applause. I caught sight of Owen in the corner, his teacher's cardigan making him look impossibly ordinary among my sleek colleagues. He held his phone, probably texting about pickup times for Eva. Always the responsible one, always the background player. "But seriously," I continued, riding the wave of attention, "success requires surrounding yourself with people who understand ambition, who celebrate wins instead of questioning them." Damien moved beside me, his hand finding the small of my back. "And that's exactly what we do here. We celebrate excellence." The moment stretched, charged with possibility. Then Damien leaned in, his lips brushing mine, in what he'd later call a congratulatory gesture. The kiss lasted 3 seconds too long, his hand tightening on my waist as cameras flashed and phones recorded. The room erupted. Cheers, whistles, someone shouting, "Power couple!" I felt intoxicated by the attention, the validation, the sheer electricity of being seen as successful, desirable, important. When I finally looked for Owen, he was gone. "That was incredible," Marina whispered in my ear. My best friend since college, she understood ambition in ways Owen never would. "The chemistry between you two is obvious." I laughed, still buzzing. "It's just work chemistry, team spirit." "Right," she smirked, "just like how I have team spirit with my yoga instructor." The party continued for another hour. I posed for photos, accepted congratulations, and basked in the glow of professional triumph. Damien stayed close, his presence both thrilling and dangerous. Every smile, every casual touch felt like proof of my worth. I didn't think about Owen until I was in the Uber home, scrolling through the photos already posted on social media. The kiss was everywhere: LinkedIn, Instagram, the company's official accounts. Comments poured in. Goals, power moves, living her best life. One comment made me pause. What about her husband? I deleted it immediately. The apartment felt cold when I entered. Owen sat at the kitchen table, grading papers with his usual methodical precision. Eva was asleep, her backpack neatly arranged for tomorrow. Everything exactly as I'd left it, as if my triumph hadn't happened at all. "How was the party?" Owen asked without looking up. "Amazing. We exceeded every target." I poured myself wine, still riding the high. "The whole team was incredible. Damien said it was the best launch in company history." Owen's pen paused. "I saw the photos." "Good. I'm glad someone documented it. This is career-defining stuff, Owen. The kind of success that changes everything." He finally looked at me, those quiet brown eyes holding something I couldn't read. "The kiss was documented too." I laughed, waving my hand dismissively. "Oh, that's just startup culture. Everyone's affectionate when deals close. You wouldn't understand. It's different in corporate." "Different how?" "More dynamic, more celebratory. People aren't afraid to show emotion when they're winning." I sat across from him, noting how he'd moved his coffee mug slightly away from mine. You know how reserved teachers can be. Owen returned to his papers. I'm going to bed early. Long day tomorrow. Don't you want to hear about the investor feedback, the projections for next quarter? I'm sure it's all very impressive. He gathered his materials with careful precision. Congratulations, Legia. Something in his tone made me defensive. You could sound more enthusiastic. This affects our whole family. Better income, better opportunities, better everything. I said congratulations. You said it like you were congratulating someone on surviving surgery. Owen paused at the kitchen doorway, maybe because I'm not sure what we're celebrating anymore. After he left, I opened my laptop and scrolled through the social media coverage. The photos were everywhere, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. Success looked good on me. Power looked good on me. I reposted the best shots with my own commentary. When your team celebrates, wins the right way. Grateful for colleagues who understand that excellence deserves recognition. Power moves. Andrew's startup life. Andrew sir, no apologies. The likes and comments poured in immediately. This was validation Owen could never provide. This was the applause I deserved. But as I closed the laptop, I noticed something odd. Owen's calendar, usually filled with school meetings and Eva's activities, had a new entry for next week. Downtown 9:25. I almost asked him about it, but decided against it. Probably some boring teacher training. I finished my wine and went to bed, still glowing from the evening's success. Owen was already asleep, turned away from my side of the bed. I didn't think much of it then. I should have. The next morning brought a flood of notifications. The launch photos had gone viral within our industry circles, and my phone buzzed constantly with congratulations, meeting requests, and interview opportunities. I felt vindicated, powerful, unstoppable. Owen made breakfast in silence, his movements efficient and distant. Eva chatted about her upcoming school project, while he packed her lunch with the same methodical care he applied to everything. "Mommy, why is your picture kissing your boss everywhere?" Eva asked, showing me her tablet where she'd been playing educational games. I nearly choked on my coffee. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Marina showed me on her phone yesterday. She said you looked like a movie star." I shot a look at Owen, who continued buttering Eva's toast without comment. Marina was just excited about Mommy's work success. Sometimes grown-ups celebrate differently than kids do. "But you're married to Daddy, not your boss." Owen's knife paused for just a moment. "Of course I am, baby. It was just a congratulations kiss. Like when you hug your teacher after a good test." Eva seemed satisfied with this explanation, but I caught Owen's reflection in the window. His jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid. After dropping Eva at school, I called Marina to vent. "Owen's being weird about the party," I complained, navigating downtown traffic. "He's acting like I committed some crime instead of achieving the biggest success of my career." "Typical," Marina sighed. "Remember when Brad got jealous of my promotion dinner? Men can't handle it when we outshine them professionally." "Exactly. And it's not like anything inappropriate happened. Damien was just being supportive." "Supportive and incredibly hot," Marina added. "Did you see how he looked at you? That man is interested." I felt a flutter of excitement. "It's just professional chemistry." "Right, and I'm just professionally attracted to my trainer's abs." We laughed and I felt better. Marina understood ambition. She understood that success required different rules, different relationships, different priorities than Owen's small, safe world. At work, the atmosphere was electric. Colleagues who'd barely acknowledged me before now sought my opinions, my approval, my attention. Damien called me into his office twice, both times letting his hand linger on my shoulder as he praised my exceptional performance. "You're exactly the kind of leader this company needs," he said during our afternoon meeting. "Fearless, uncompromising, willing to do whatever it takes to win." The way he said "whatever it takes" sent a thrill through me. But the real test came that evening at Owen's parents' house. His mother, Mira, had planned a small dinner party for their friends, the same group they'd socialized with for 30 years. Conservative, traditional people who wouldn't understand the dynamics of modern success. I dressed carefully, a black dress that was professional but striking, heels that added confidence, jewelry that suggested prosperity. Owen wore his usual khakis and button-down, looking like he was heading to a parent-teacher conference. "You might want to tone it down tonight," he suggested as we parked outside his parents' modest suburban home. "They're not used to corporate culture." "I'm not going to apologize for success, Owen. If your parents can't handle seeing their daughter-in-law thrive, that's their limitation." The dinner started pleasantly enough. Mira had prepared her usual spread: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans from her garden. The conversation centered on local news, school board elections, and neighborhood gossip. Safe, boring, small. After 2 glasses of wine, I felt compelled to elevate the discussion. "You should see the office space we're moving into next quarter," I announced. "Corner views, state-of-the-art everything. It's what happens when you refuse to settle for mediocrity." Owen's father, Peter, smiled politely. "That sounds wonderful, dear. Owen mentioned you've been working very hard." Hard work is just the baseline. It's about strategic thinking, relationship building, understanding how power actually works. I took another sip of wine. Most people are too afraid to really go after what they want. "I think most people are just trying to do their best," Mira said gently. I laughed. That's exactly the problem. Doing your best is participation trophy thinking. Winners don't just try, they dominate. The table grew quieter. Owen's sister, Yelena, exchanged a look with her husband. "Speaking of dominating," I continued, feeling bold and brilliant, "you should see the photos from our launch party. We really know how to celebrate success." "We saw them," Yelena said dryly. "Then you know what real achievement looks like. Not everyone gets that kind of recognition." Peter cleared his throat. "We're very proud of your success, Legia. We just hope..." "Hope what? That I'll shrink myself to make other people comfortable? That I'll pretend to be less than I am so no one feels threatened?" The wine was making me eloquent, fearless. These people needed to understand what they were witnessing. The rise of someone extraordinary. "You know what your problem is?" I continued, gesturing expansively. "You're all so focused on being nice that you've forgotten how to be powerful. You throw little dinner parties and talk about the weather, while people like me are actually changing the world." Mira's face went pale. "Legia, perhaps what? Perhaps I should pretend this pot roast and small talk is fascinating. Perhaps I should act like Owen's teaching job is as important as my corporate leadership." The silence was deafening. Owen's fork had stopped halfway to his mouth. Eva, who'd been coloring quietly in the corner, looked up with wide eyes. "You know what's embarrassing?" I stood up, wine making me feel invincible. Watching people settle for so little when there's so much more available. This whole dinner, this whole house, this whole mindset, it's all so limited. Peter's face changed then, not angry, just small, hurt in a way that penetrated even my wine-fueled confidence. He looked at Owen with something like pity, then back at me with something like disappointment. "I think," Mira said very quietly, "perhaps it's time for everyone to go home." Owen stood immediately. "Mum, I'm sorry. Legia's had a long week." "Don't apologize for me," I snapped. "I'm not sorry for having standards." But as Owen gathered our things and ushered me toward the door, I noticed something that sobered me slightly. On the mantel, next to family photos, was a framed picture of Owen as a child between his parents. As we passed, I glimpsed something tucked beneath it, a handwritten note. I couldn't read it clearly, but I caught a few words. "Thank you for respecting our family." That note had been meant for me. Until tonight. The car ride home was silent except for Eva's quiet questions about why Grandma looked sad. Owen answered in monosyllables, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "They needed to hear that," I said finally. Someone had to tell them that there's more to life than playing it safe. Owen pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. What you did tonight was cruel. What I did was honest. I refuse to pretend that mediocrity is admirable. My parents aren't mediocre. They're good people who've worked hard their whole lives and treated you like family. Family that judges me for succeeding. Family that can't handle seeing someone rise above their level. Owen carried Eva inside while I checked my phone. The launch photos had gained even more traction. Comments poured in from industry leaders, potential clients, ambitious colleagues. This was my world now, a world of winners who understood what it took to excel. I found Owen in his study later, working on lesson plans with unusual intensity. His calendar was open, and I noticed another cryptic entry. Downtown 1340. What's downtown? I asked. He didn't look up. Just errands. What kind of errands? The boring kind you wouldn't be interested in. I wanted to press, but my phone buzzed with a text from Damien. Brilliant work today. Dinner tomorrow to discuss your future here. I smiled and typed back, absolutely. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Owen's typing stopped for a moment, but he didn't turn around. I went to bed that night feeling vindicated and excited about tomorrow's dinner with Damien. Owen slept on his side of the bed, further away than usual, but I attributed it to his small-minded reaction to my honesty with his parents. Some people couldn't handle the truth about excellence. That was their limitation, not mine. Dinner with Damien exceeded every expectation. He chose an upscale rooftop restaurant downtown, the kind of place where deals were made and power was displayed. Over wine that cost more than Owen's monthly car payment, Damien outlined his vision for my future at the company. You're executive material, Legia, the kind of leader who isn't afraid to make bold moves. His hand covered mine across the table. I want to fast-track your promotion, but it requires complete commitment. I'm ready for anything, I assured him, feeling the electricity of possibility. Good, because success at this level demands sacrifices. Not everyone understands the dedication required. I knew he meant Owen. Some people are content with small lives. I'm not. Damien's smile was predatory and thrilling. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The evening ended with another kiss, this one longer and more deliberate than the launch party celebration. A photographer from the Business Journal happened to be there, and the resulting image would appear in next week's Power Players feature. I posted it immediately with the caption, "When your boss believes in your potential. Grateful for leadership that recognizes excellence." Not for power moves. Executive track, not unlimited potential. The response was immediate and intoxicating. Likes, shares, comments from industry influencers. This was the validation I deserved. Owen was asleep when I got home, but his laptop was open on the kitchen counter. I glimpsed file folders labeled with dates and what looked like Archive AB before the screensaver kicked in. The next few weeks blurred together in a haze of success and recognition. Damien included me in high-level meetings, sought my input on strategic decisions, and made it clear that my star was rising rapidly. Our professional relationship deepened, became more intimate, more exclusive. You understand what it takes to win, he told me during a late-night strategy session in his office. That's rare. Most people are too afraid of judgment to pursue real power. I've never been afraid of judgment, I replied, accepting the glass of champagne he offered. I've noticed the way you handle criticism, the way you refuse to apologize for success, it's impressive. He was right. When HR's Priya Mehra had pulled me aside to discuss optics and professional boundaries, I'd shut down the conversation immediately. Are you suggesting I should hide my achievements to make other people comfortable? I'd asked her directly. I'm suggesting that certain displays of affection might be misinterpreted. By whom? By people who can't handle seeing a woman succeed, by people who think professional chemistry is somehow inappropriate. Priya had backed down, but I could see the concern in her eyes. Small minds always worried about appearances instead of results. The breaking point came at the company's quarterly rooftop party. The entire staff was there, plus investors, clients, and industry media. I wore a red dress that commanded attention and positioned myself strategically near Damien throughout the evening. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien announced during his speech, "I want to recognize someone who embodies everything this company stands for. Legia Vance has shown us what fearless leadership looks like." The applause was thunderous. I stepped forward, basking in the recognition, feeling more powerful and validated than ever before. "Thank you," I said into the microphone. "Success isn't for everyone. It requires courage, dedication, and the willingness to ignore people who try to hold you back. Tonight proves what's possible when you refuse to settle." More applause. Damien moved beside me, his presence magnetic and dangerous. "To fearless leaders," he said, raising his glass. "To unlimited potential," I replied. This time, when he kissed me, I kissed back. Fully, passionately, with complete disregard for the cameras, the crowd, or the consequences. This was power. This was success. This was everything Owen's safe, small world could never provide. The room erupted in cheers and whistles. Someone shouted, "Get a room!" And everyone laughed. I felt electric, unstoppable, finally seen for who I really was. Then I spotted Owen. He stood near the bar, still in his teaching clothes, looking impossibly ordinary among my glamorous colleagues. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but a kind of cold calculation. He didn't storm out. He didn't make a scene. He simply turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd with the same quiet efficiency he brought to everything. I should have followed him. I should have explained. Instead, I stayed at the party for another 2 hours, accepting congratulations and posing for more photos with Damien. The social media explosion was immediate. The kiss was everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, local news blogs. Comments ranged from supportive to scandalized, but the engagement was massive. I curated the narrative carefully. When your leadership team celebrates success the right way, grateful for colleagues who understand that excellence deserves recognition. Some people get it, some don't. Power couple. No apologies. Line winners mentality. Marina was the first to call. "Girl, you are everywhere. That kiss is iconic. You look like a CEO already." "It feels incredible," I admitted. "This is what success looks like." "What did Owen say?" "He'll adjust. He always does." But when I got home that night, something felt different. Owen wasn't in bed or in his study. I found him in the kitchen, organizing files with methodical precision. The table was covered with papers, binders, and what looked like printed emails. "Working late?" I asked, still buzzing from the party. "Something like that." He didn't look up. "You missed an incredible evening. The investor feedback was phenomenal." I saw enough. His tone was neutral, almost businesslike. It should have warned me, but I was too intoxicated by success to pay attention. "You could have stayed, networked a little. These connections could benefit our whole family." Owen finally looked at me. "Could they?" Something in his voice made me defensive. Of course, rising tides lift all boats. Interesting metaphor. He returned to his papers. "I'm going to be working late. Don't wait up." I went to bed alone, but I wasn't concerned. Owen had always been supportive of my ambitions, even when he didn't fully understand them. He'd come around. The next morning brought a new crisis. Eva's teacher, Mrs. Peterson, had requested a parent conference. Apparently, Eva had been acting out in class, drawing disturbing pictures, and asking uncomfortable questions about why Mommy kisses her boss. "Children pick up on tension at home," Mrs. Peterson explained gently. "Eva's recent artwork shows some concerning themes." She showed us Eva's latest drawing, a family portrait where Owen's figure was noticeably smaller and greyed out, almost ghost-like. I was drawn large and colourful, standing next to a tall man who wasn't Owen. "It's just her processing Mommy's work success," I explained. "Children don't understand professional relationships." Mrs. Peterson looked skeptical. "Perhaps some family counselling might help Eva navigate these changes." Owen agreed immediately, but I bristled at the suggestion. "Eva's fine. She's just adjusting to having a successful mother instead of just a teacher father." The silence that followed was deafening. That evening, I found Owen's study door locked. Through the gap, I could hear the printer running, then the shredder. When I knocked, he called out that he was organising household files. On his calendar, I noticed a new entry circled in red, 2 weeks away. No label, just a time, 10:30 a.m. I almost asked about it, but my phone buzzed with another congratulatory message from a potential client. The business world was taking notice. Opportunities were multiplying. This was my moment. Owen's mysterious calendar entries and late-night filing could wait. Success wouldn't. The HR meeting came on a Tuesday morning, unexpected and unwelcome. Priya Mehra sat across from me in the conference room, her expression professionally neutral, but her discomfort obvious. "Legia, we need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about recent public displays at company events." I leaned back in my chair, projecting confidence. "If this is about the rooftop party, I hope you're not suggesting that celebrating success is somehow inappropriate." "It's about maintaining professional boundaries. The photos and videos from last week have raised questions about the nature of your relationship with Damien." "What questions?" "We're colleagues celebrating a major win. If people want to read more into that, it says more about their limitations than our professional chemistry." Priya pulled out a tablet, swiping through screenshots of social media posts. These captions suggest something beyond professional collaboration. "Power couple. Unlimited potential. When your boss believes in your potential." The language is intimate. It's confident. It's successful. Are you really asking me to tone down my achievements to make other people comfortable? I'm asking you to consider how these displays affect team morale, company reputation, and your own professional standing. I laughed, a sound that came out sharper than intended. My professional standing has never been higher. Clients are calling, investors are interested, and our department's numbers are through the roof. Maybe instead of questioning my methods, you should be asking other employees why they're not achieving similar results. Priya's expression tightened. Success is important, but so is maintaining appropriate workplace relationships. Define appropriate, because last I checked, celebrating wins with your leadership team was standard corporate culture. Kissing your boss at public events goes beyond standard celebration. Says who? Says people who are uncomfortable with dynamic, high-achieving women. Says people who think success should be quiet and apologetic. The meeting ended with vague warnings about monitoring the situation and expectations of professional conduct. I left feeling vindicated. Clearly, my success was threatening people who preferred the status quo. But the real blow came that afternoon when I overheard Nate and 2 other colleagues discussing the situation in the break room. "It's getting awkward," Nate was saying, "like we all want to support her, but the whole thing with Damien is becoming obvious." "Did you see her husband at the party?" someone else replied. "He looked mortified." "I heard HR is investigating. Apparently, there have been complaints about favoritism." I stepped into the break room, and the conversation stopped immediately. "Don't stop on my account," I said, pouring coffee with deliberate calm. "I'm always interested in hearing how people process success." The awkward silence stretched until Nate cleared his throat. "We were just discussing the quarterly numbers." "Right, the numbers that I delivered, the success that I achieved, the recognition that I earned." I turned to face them directly. If anyone has concerns about my performance or my methods, they're welcome to discuss them with me directly instead of whispering in break rooms. They scattered quickly, but the damage was done. The office dynamics were shifting, and not in my favor. That evening, I called Marina for support. People are being weird about the party, I complained. Acting like professional chemistry is some kind of scandal. Jealousy, Marina said immediately. They can't handle seeing you win. What does Owen think? Owen's being supportive in his quiet way. He's always been more comfortable behind the scenes. Good. At least you don't have to deal with drama at home too. But as I hung up, I realized I wasn't entirely sure what Owen was thinking. Our conversations had become brief and functional. He handled Eva's schedule, managed household logistics, and worked late in his study most evenings. I found him there after dinner, surrounded by more files and binders than I'd ever seen. The printer was running again, and several USBs were labeled with dates going back months. "What's all this?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Just organizing things," Owen replied without looking up. "Making sure everything is properly documented." Documented for what? For clarity. Sometimes it's important to have clear records. Something in his tone made me uneasy, but before I could pursue it, my phone rang. Damien was calling about tomorrow's investor presentation. "Sorry," I mouthed to Owen, stepping into the hallway to take the call. The conversation with Damien was intoxicating, as always. He praised my strategic thinking, my presentation skills, my natural leadership abilities. When he suggested a working dinner to prepare for next week's board meeting, I agreed immediately. "You're exactly what this company needs," he told me. "Someone who isn't afraid to make bold moves, take risks, push boundaries." "I've never been afraid of pushing boundaries," I assured him. "I've noticed it's one of your most attractive qualities." After hanging up, I returned to Owen's study, but he'd cleared everything away. The desk was empty except for his laptop, which was password protected and closed. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Everything's fine, just getting organized." But as I headed to bed, I noticed something new in the kitchen, a thick binder labeled Statement sitting on the counter next to the coffee maker. When I opened it, the pages were blank, but the tab dividers suggested sections for timeline, documentation, and custody. Custody? I closed the binder quickly, telling myself it was probably related to Eva's school paperwork or some teacher administrative requirement. Owen was always meticulous about documentation. Still, something nagged at me as I fell asleep. The mysterious calendar entries, the late-night organizing, the careful way Owen spoke about clarity and records. But my phone buzzed with another congratulatory message, and I pushed the concerns aside. Success required focus, and I was too close to my breakthrough to be distracted by Owen's administrative projects. Tomorrow's investor presentation would be another triumph. Damien had hinted at promotion possibilities, executive track opportunities, corner office potential. This was my moment. Everything else could wait. Mira's birthday lunch was supposed to be a chance to repair the damage from the dinner party disaster. I chose my outfit carefully. A sophisticated navy dress that suggested success without being flashy, minimal jewelry, a warm smile that I practiced in the car mirror. "Remember, these people matter to Eva," Owen said, as we parked outside his parents' house. "Whatever issues you have with their lifestyle choices, she loves her grandparents." "Of course I remember. I'm not the villain here, Owen. I'm just someone who refuses to apologize for achieving more than they thought possible." The gathering was small, immediate family, plus a few close friends. I brought an expensive bottle of wine and a thoughtful card, determined to show them that success hadn't changed my fundamental character. But the atmosphere was strained from the moment we walked in. Conversations paused when I entered rooms. People were polite but distant, like they were handling something fragile and potentially dangerous. Yelena was particularly cold. "How's work going, Legia?" Still making headlines? Business is excellent, thank you. We're expanding into 3 new markets next quarter. I meant the other headlines, the ones about your professional relationships. Owen's warning look stopped her from elaborating, but the damage was done. Everyone knew about the photos, the social media posts, the office gossip. During lunch, I tried to steer conversation towards safe topics: Eva's school performance, upcoming family events, neutral current events. But every attempt felt forced, like I was performing normalcy for an increasingly skeptical audience. The breaking point came when Peter started telling one of his old stories about Owen's childhood baseball games, the same rambling anecdote I'd heard a dozen times, complete with unnecessary details about weather and concession stand prices. "Dad always tells the best stories," Owen said fondly, clearly trying to maintain peace. "They're certainly detailed," I replied, my patience wearing thin. "That's what makes them special," Mira added. "All those little moments matter." 2 glasses of wine had lowered my filter just enough to be honest. Do they, though? I mean, isn't it more important to focus on actual achievements rather than dwelling on childhood nostalgia? The table went quiet. "I just think," I continued, feeling bold and articulate, "that successful people look forward instead of backward. They create new stories instead of repeating old ones." "There's nothing wrong with cherishing memories," Yelena said sharply. "Of course not, but there's also nothing wrong with having higher aspirations than Little League baseball and concession stand hot dogs." Peter's face changed then. Not angry, just small. Hurt in a way that penetrated my wine-fueled confidence. He looked at Owen with something like pity, then back at me with profound disappointment. "I think," Mira said very quietly, "that every family has different ways of showing love." "Exactly. Some families celebrate the past, some families create the future. Some families are content with small victories, others pursue real success." Eva, who had been coloring quietly, looked up with wide eyes. "Mummy, why are you talking mean to Grandpa?" The question hit like a physical blow. The entire table stared at me, and I realized how my words must have sounded to a 6-year-old who adored her grandparents. "I'm not talking mean, sweetheart. I'm just explaining that different people have different goals." But Grandpa looked sad. He did look sad. They all did. And suddenly I felt like I was performing for an audience that had already left the theater. "Maybe we should go," Owen said quietly. "We just got here," I protested, but even I could hear how hollow it sounded. The goodbyes were awkward and brief. Mira hugged Eva tightly but barely touched me. Peter shook Owen's hand with obvious sympathy. Yelena didn't even pretend to be polite. In the car, Eva asked the question that shattered my remaining composure. "Why doesn't Grandma like you anymore, Mummy?" "Grandma likes me fine, baby. She just doesn't understand Mummy's work." "Is that why you're always on your phone? Because of work?" Owen's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Ava, why don't you tell us about your art project?" But Ava wasn't finished. "Sarah's mommy doesn't kiss her boss. Why do you kiss yours?" The silence stretched until Owen turned on the radio, filling the car with generic pop music that couldn't mask the tension. That night, I found Owen in his study again, but this time the door was open. The desk was covered with legal-sized papers, and I caught glimpses of official letterhead before he calmly closed the folders. "What's all that?" I asked. "Just paperwork, nothing urgent." It looked official. "Legal stuff?" "Some of it." He turned to face me with that same neutral expression he'd been wearing for weeks. "How do you think today went?" The question felt loaded. "It was fine. Your family needs time to adjust to my success." "Is that what you think happened today?" "I think small-minded people have trouble accepting that some of us want more than their limited version of happiness." Owen nodded slowly, like he was confirming something to himself. "That's exactly what I thought you'd say." He returned to his papers, and I noticed something new on his calendar. Tomorrow's date was circled in red, with a time notation, 10:30 a.m. What's tomorrow at 10:30? I asked. Just an appointment, nothing that concerns you. The dismissive tone stung. Everything that affects this family concerns me. Does it? Owen looked at me directly for the first time in weeks. Because from where I sit, it seems like this family stopped concerning you months ago. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain how success required sacrifice, and how my achievements would benefit everyone eventually. But something in Owen's expression stopped me. He looked like a man who had already made a decision. A man who was simply going through the necessary motions to reach a predetermined conclusion. Owen, if you're upset about the photos or the party or my honesty with your parents, we can talk about it. We can work through it. Can we? He gathered his papers with methodical precision, because I'm not sure we're even talking about the same things anymore. That night, I lay awake listening to Owen's steady breathing and trying to shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The mysterious appointments, the legal paperwork, the careful way he spoke about documentation and clarity. But my phone buzzed with a text from Damien about tomorrow's strategy session, and I pushed the concerns aside. Success required focus, and I was too close to my executive promotion to be distracted by domestic drama. Whatever Owen was planning could wait. My career couldn't. The investor dinner was supposed to be my coronation. 3 months of strategic positioning, relationship building, and fearless self-promotion had led to this moment. A private dinner with the firm's biggest clients, Damien, and select executive team members. I chose my outfit with military precision. A black power dress that commanded respect, jewelry that suggested success without ostentation, confidence that radiated from every gesture. This was the evening that would cement my promotion to senior executive. The restaurant was perfect, exclusive, elegant, the kind of place where million-dollar decisions were made over wine that cost more than most people's rent. I arrived early, positioning myself strategically near the entrance to greet each investor personally. Legia, Damien's smile was warm and proprietorial as he approached. You look absolutely stunning. Ready to close the biggest deal of your career? I was born ready, I replied, accepting his kiss on the cheek with practiced ease. The evening unfolded exactly as I'd envisioned. Investors praised my strategic vision, asked insightful questions about market expansion, and nodded approvingly as I outlined my plans for the next fiscal year. Damien stayed close, his hand occasionally finding my back, his comments reinforcing my expertise. This is exactly the kind of forward-thinking leadership our portfolio companies need, one investor told me. Fearless, innovative, uncompromising. Thank you. I believe success requires the courage to make bold moves, even when others don't understand the vision. More nods, more approval. I felt invincible, validated, finally recognized for my true potential. To fearless leaders, Damien raised his glass in a toast that felt like a promise. To unlimited possibilities, I responded, our eyes meeting across the table with electric understanding. The photographer from the business journal captured the moment perfectly. 2 successful executives celebrating a major deal. The picture of professional chemistry and shared ambition. I was posting the photo to LinkedIn when the server approached our table. Excuse me, Ms. Vance, there's someone here to see you. Public humiliation. Legia stared at the server. You've been served, he said, handing her the envelope. She opened it. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds, adultery, emotional abandonment, screenshots, emails, photos with Damien. Owen sought primary custody of Eva. Investors fled. Damien distanced himself. HR received a complaint, he said, then left. Yelena answered coldly. They're where they need to be. The restaurant emptied. Legia sat alone amid scattered papers, her triumph shattered. Owen had documented everything, served her publicly, and won.